Father，你伫厝内一个真正重要的角色。
Father, you have a very important role in your home.
望你做一个敬虔的老爸，这个上帝使用的老爸。
And I hope that you can be a godly father, a father whom God can use.
今天我集基团的信息是 How to have a happy marriage.
Message I'm preaching this morning is entitled How to Have a Happy Marriage.
Father，你是一个真正重要的 contributor，
Fathers, you are a very important contributor.
因为你的原因，你的厝内的婚姻，因为你有通真正的梦想的祝福。
And because of you, your marriage can be blessed by God.
1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7，聖經上你講，你最丈夫就按情理，原本是知識，及你太太相合起，因為伊比你軟弱，及你相合承受生命的運，所以你就敬重伊，安尼好叫你的祈禱無有阻礙。
Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers.
今日是 International Father's Day，
And today is International Father's Day.
關咱中間最丈夫、最老爸每一個兄弟，一個真正歡喜的日子。
May every father and every man among us this day be a very happy day for you indeed.
今日嘅 message 是對最老爸嘅講。
And today's message is directed toward fathers.
今天的 message 係對老母講，
And today's message is also directed towards mothers.
今天的 message 對每一個家庭嘅人嚟講，
And this message today is directed to every member of the
因為當
family.
咱有一個真正好嘅婚姻嘅時陣，
For when we have a very beautiful marriage,
全家都受影
the
響。
whole family will be affected.
當婚姻產生問題嘅時陣，
When there is a problem in the marriage,
全家都受影
the
響，
whole family will be affected as well,
因為咱是 the member of the family。
because we are the man of the family.
Martin Luther 講到一句話：
Martin Luther said,
原對太太嘅好丈夫歡喜倒去厝內，原丈夫嘅好太太為伊離開厝內真艱苦心。
Martin Luther said, may the wife cause her husband to love coming home, and the husband make the wife sad when he leaves home.
但是現今這個世界可能都係相反，
But in our world today, probably this is the opposite,
因為太太丈夫冇倒去厝內，
because husband and wife are not going home.
因為丈夫太太好丈夫千萬唔通倒去厝內。
Husband and wives are not coming home because their spouse are saying that you shouldn't be coming home.
伊若無倒來，感謝主。
And if he or she doesn't come home, you thank God for
這個
it.
唔是上帝建立婚姻的原因。
This is not God's design for marriage,
好太太因為丈夫倒去厝內，
but rather the wife will cause her husband to love coming home.
好丈夫好太太因為離開而艱苦心。
And then the husband will make the wife sad whenever he leaves home.
Five Language of Love 嘅作者 Chapman 講咗一句話。Five Language of Love 嘅作
The,
者，
the author of the 5 languages of love said,
伊講當你哋去一間餐館嘅時陣，看到一個男嘅一個女嘅去食，你就會知呀，這兩個人是近手還是未近手。
that when you enter into a restaurant and you see a man and a woman having a meal together, how can you tell whether this couple is married or not yet?
伊嘅答案真簡單。
And his answer is very simple.
如果你講到這個男嘅女嘅食物件，哪食哪看，看來看去，笑來笑去，伊講這兩個人未近手。
Because whenever you look at you see these 2 persons, they're eating, they're having a meal together, and as they are eating, they're looking at each other, they are talking to one another, smiling with one another,
They are
and they
not
aren't
married
married
yet.
yet.
嗱，這兩個人嗱唔相插，家己食家己物件，唔捌講話，這個人近手了，佫近了真久咯。
But then if the 2 persons are eating, and yet they are not, they're ignoring each other, they're not talking to one another, they're not even looking at one another, they're just eating their food, then this couple has been married for a long time.
為什麼出嚟代志發生呢？
Why would this happen?
這是婚姻嘅問題。
This is a problem in the marriage.
但對不住兄弟啊，常常婚姻嘅問題 第一大嘅問題常常是對丈夫這個人。
I'm sorry to say, man, but many times problems in a marriage begins with the husband.
為什麼你講呢？
Why do we say this?
因為當這個男這個女結婚以後，
Because after a man and a woman is married,
這個做太太自然較注意家庭。
the wife, it would be very natural for the wife to focus more on the family.
這個婚姻，這個家庭，查咗這個女嘅一生第一重要嘅代志
The。family becomes the most important thing for the wife.
但係做丈夫嘅人，
But for the husband,
當結婚以後，
after they're married,
伊慢慢感覺事業是伊生命第一重要嘅代志，
slowly he would feel that his career is the most important thing in his
伊
life.
就開始主動家己事業，
And so he starts focusing and building on his own career.
伊無愛用時間了解伊嘅太太，
He wouldn't want to spend time to trying to understand his wife
因為女嘅真複雜，
because women are very complicated creatures.
咱真剛剛完全了解你嘅太太
It's。very difficult for us to completely understand our wife.
你看咪男嘅真簡單，
Look at men, they're very simple.
你講咱穿什麼衫？
Look at what kind of clothing we wear.
冇嚟嚟去就是按你講嘅衫，
And we wear this kind of clothing all the time.
但是女嘅衫
But for
奇
ladies,
奇怪怪，
they're very strange.
女嘅真特別。
Women are very special.
當女嘅同你講伊無衫通穿嘅時陣，
When a woman tells you that she doesn't have any clothing to wear,
咱做兄弟、做丈夫完全未了解。
as men, as husbands, we don't understand them at all.
衫到幾百領衫，伊講伊無衫通
Look at the
穿。
wardrobe and you see so many clothing in there, so many dresses, and then she's saying that she doesn't have any clothing to wear.
伊嘅思想及咱思想完全消滅成大志。
And their thinking is completely different from ours.
所以同個人講，女嘅心親像海底嘅針，
So the Chinese have a saying that a woman's heart is unfathomable as a needle under the sea.
了解自己女嘅心是真無容易嘅大志。
It's not easy to try to understand a woman's heart.
結果兄弟慢慢將家己放喺事業嘅裏面，
So man or husband will slowly immerse himself into his
冇
career.
用時間了解家己嘅太
And
太。
he won't be spending a lot of time in trying to understand his wife.
結果太太無通蒙着丈夫內心嘅軟弱、內心嘅驚
And
嚇，
as a result, the wife isn't able to touch on the fears and all the struggles of the husband's heart.
結果無通建立一個真正幸福、真正歡喜嘅婚姻。
That is why they aren't able to build a blessed, happy marriage.
因為兩個人能無法誠實面對對方，無法建立更加親密嘅關係。
Because if two persons aren't able to honestly face one another, then it is very difficult for them to go into a deeper
但
relationship.
係聖經唔是按你教導
But
人，
that is not what the Bible teaches
聖經按
us.
你建立一個 two become one 嘅關係。
Yet the Bible wants us to build a relationship based upon the two becoming one.
所以，咱需要用時間付出代價嚟 work out your marriage。
That is why we need to pay the price. We need to spend time to work out our marriage.
咱乜到佢聖經裏面，
And let's go back to the Bible.
聖經之後教導咱呢，
How does the Bible teach us?
咱嚟看太太嘅教導。
Let's take a look at the instructions for the wife.
如果所述嘅過照22到24節，
In Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 to 24.
你最車主就順服家嘅丈夫，親像順服主，因為丈夫是車主嘅頭，親像基督是教會嘅頭，而是教會全隊嘅救主。教會就順服基督，太太就凡事順服丈夫。
Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything.
保羅哋結束嘅信記到一句話，
And Paul concluded by adding this:
佢講太太也就敬重家嘅丈夫。
the wife must respect her husband.
聖經將兩個責任交予太太，
And the Bible entrusts two responsibilities to the wife,
順服及敬重。
and that is to submit and to respect.
因為到佢你敬重一個人，你無法順服一個人。
Because if you aren't able to respect a person, you wouldn't be able to submit to him or her.
你有當勉強一個人聽你講話，
You can force a person to listen to what you're saying.
你無法勉強一個人敬重你嘅生命。
Then you aren't able to force a person to respect you.
夫婦真大問題你得落，
What is the greatest problem between husband and wife?
原來夫婦離婚第一大原因其中一個
One of the greatest reasons for divorce between couples
叫
is
做 power struggle。
it is power struggle.
什麼意思呢？
What is the meaning of this?
神啊都冇學神啊，
That both of them refuse to submit to the other.
喺家裏面兩個人三字最頭。
In the home, the two of them are struggling to become the head of the
你
family.
講牧師啊，現在是21世紀啦，
You say, Pastor, it's the 21st century today,
國叫女嘅順服男嘅，
and you are asking the women to submit to their husbands?
這是唔是有淡薄叫做大男人主義？
Isn't this a bit of a male chauvinism?
自卑啊！
Ladies,
寫咗見到呢是30世紀，
and if today is we are in the 30th
嗱
century,
耶穌基督仍然未
and
嚟，
if Jesus Christ hasn't come yet,
車主仍然需要順服丈夫，
wives, you still need to submit to your husbands,
因為這唔是時間嘅問題，
because this is not a matter of time,
這是真理嘅問
but
題。
rather this is a matter of the truth.
順服就是聽伊講話，
To submit is to listen to what the person is saying.
聽伊講話唔是好，唔是講這個女嘅比男嘅較差，
Listen to what he says doesn't necessarily mean that the woman is inferior to the man.
這是上帝建立婚姻嘅 structure，伊嘅結構是安尼。
Rather, this is how God established the structure for marriage.
嗱冇順服咧，
And what if you don't submit?
你想看咪？
Think about this.
一個國家下家人嗱冇順服頂家嘅人，
In a country, if the people, the citizens, don't submit to the authorities,
一個家庭下家冇順服頂家嘅人，
and if in a family, people do not submit to those who are leading the
一
family,
間公司下家冇順服頂家嘅人，
and in a company, if the people, the employees, are not submitting to their superiors,
會什麼結果？
what would be the result?
喺國家裏面
In the country,
就產生叫做coup d'état，
in the nation, then you will have a coup d'etat.
喺公司裏面
In the company,
叫做 unproductive，
then you would have be
喺
unproductivity.
家庭裏
And
面
in the family,
叫做 divorce。
you will have divorce.
所以上帝建立這個婚姻嘅 structure 是真正重要。
So God has established the structure of marriage, and it's extremely important.
你若冇順服嘅相關就是對抗，
The opposite of obedience or submission is defiance.
所以你記得咯，
So remember,
順服也是對抗，
whether you want to submit or you want to defy,
這是 make your choice。
it is your choice.
太太你嘅選擇，
Wives, this is your choice.
順服也是對抗。
Whether you want to submit or you want to defy.
第二，
Second,
咱要丈夫嘅教導咧，
instructions for the husbands.
聖經講你對丈夫就聽妻主，親像基督聽教會，為教會綁實家己，用最直嘅道將教會水淨化最聖潔，但顯露家己最榮耀嘅教會，毫無玷污、掉滿等類嘅破弊，是聖潔無瑕疵。丈夫啊，一定照樣聽家嘅妻主，親像聽家己嘅辛苦，聽妻主就是聽家己咯。
Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself.
聖經對兄弟嘅教導只有一個，
And the Bible only has one instruction for the husband,
聽你嘅妻主，
and that is to love your wife.
親像基督聽教會，
Love your wives just as Christ loved the church.
真可惜。
It is such a pity,
真
though.
在兄弟根本唔知影基督是怎樣聽教會，
Such a shame that many men do not know how Christ loved the church,
因為真在兄弟連聖經都冇乜好記讀，
because many men don't even read their Bible
根
well.
本唔知影聖經嘅真理講什麼，
They don't even know what the Bible teaches.
所以唔知怎樣聽家己嘅太
So
太，
they do not know how to love their own wives.
用家己聽去聽家己嘅太太，
They love their wives using their own love.
但係你聽唔是聖經嘅聽，
Yet our love is not the love that the Bible teaches.
聽你嘅太太。
Love your wife.
及 John 3:16 the God loved the world，這個 love 是上這個字。
And that same word love is also used in John 3:16, saying God loves the world.
及這個 great commandment。Love your God with all your heart, all your strength, all your might。這個 love 上這個字，
And it is likewise the same word as is used in the Great Commission, saying, or rather Great Commandment, to love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind.
這個 love
Is love.
叫做 agape love。
Love is
這個
agape.
love 是出自意啲嘅聽，唔是感情嘅聽。
It is agape. This agape love is volitional love, a love that comes from your will, not emotional kind of love.
聽啊，即係對三方面嚟，
Love can come from 3 aspects or areas.
對你嘅思想嚟
It，can come from your mind.
這是頭殼裡面嘅聽，
It is to use your rational in loving.
通過你家嘅頭殼嚟思考咪聽還是無聽這個人。
That you think in your mind whether you decide whether are you going to love this person or not.
有時你這個人是 lovable，真可愛，所以你感覺我就需要聽這個人。
Sometimes you say that this person is very lovable, so I'm going to decide to love this person.
Number two，
Number 2,
是出自你嘅 emotion，
it comes from your emotions.
用你嘅感情嚟決定聽還是無聽這個人。
You decide whether you are going to love a person or not based on your emotions.
第三是 based on 你嘅 view，
Thirdly is based on your will.
你嘅意志嚟決定我要聽還是無要聽這個
Use
人。
your will to decide whether you are going to love the person or not.
Yes，聽需要理性。
Yes, we do need rationality when we love.
Yes，是
Yes
聽需要感情。
Yes, we do need feelings or emotions when we love.
但係這個你慢，這個物件慢慢地減少。
But these are things that are bound to diminish over time.
當你嘅感情若無存在嘅時陣，
And if your emotion no longer exists,
當你嘅理性無存在嘅時陣，
when your will or mind no longer exists,
你要聽伊無
then are you going to decide to love the person or not?
？Unless 你
Unless
用你嘅 will power 去聽伊，
you use your will to love the person.
所以聽唔是感覺，聽是個選
So
擇。
love is not a feeling, but rather love is a choice.
當你結婚嘅時陣，
When you get married,
你 say yes I do，
you say to each other, yes, I do.
this is a choice。
This is a choice.
你決定不聽這個人，
You made a choice to love the person.
這個唔係是 emotion，這個是 a will。
This is not only a matter of emotion, but rather it is a matter of the will.
有一擺有一個兄弟走去問呢個牧師，
One time there was a man, a brother, who went to ask the pastor.
佢講牧師啊，我無法我聽我嘅太太
He，says, Pastor, I can no longer love my wife.
看啊，
Why?
我對已經冇感情咯。
I've lost my feelings for her.
牧師講 no。
The pastor said, no.
先講 love your wife is not emotion， love your wife is a will。
The Bible says that loving your wife is not an emotion, but rather it is a will.
哎呀，講聖經唔對啦。
It says Bible is wrong.
我就聽一個冇感情嘅人，
How can I love a person with whom I no longer have any feelings for?
會啦。
Yes, the
聖經
pastor said,
講
yes, you can.
Love yourself as love your neighbor as yourself。
And the Bible tells us, he said that love your neighbor as yourself.
是唔是？
Isn't it?
你 neighbor 咪是冇什麼感情
Your neighbor, you don't have much feelings for your neighbor either,
？Love your
right?
neighbor as yourself。
But then the Bible says that you must love your neighbor as yourself.
牧師啊，
Pastor,
我近朝唔是我 neighbor，
my wife is not my neighbor.
完全講我冇關，我完全冇想聽伊冇感覺
I
啦。
really have no feelings for her at
比我
all.
neighbor 更加慘。
She's even worse than my
唔
neighbor.
要緊，唔要緊。
That's okay, the pastor said.
Love your enemy。
Love your enemy, the pastor said.
This is a will。
For this is a
It's a
matter of the
choice.
will. It's a choice that you make.
所以兄弟啊，
So man,
你若冇要聽伊呢，
if you don't want to love her,
聽 opposite
the
就是
opposite
恨。
of love is hate.
This is another choice。
This is another choice you
這
can
是
make.
兄弟你嘅 choice。
This is a choice that you as
你
man
要
you
聽
can
你嘅
make.
太太，還是恨你
You
嘅太
can
太？
choose to love your wife or to hate your
嗱，
wife.
即個恨意思是講冇關心、冇照顧。
But the word hate here means that you're indifferent. You just don't care.
我就發現有4款嘅 model，有4款嘅 pattern in marriage。
And then I discovered that there are 4 models or patterns in marriage.
Number one 是恨及抗拒嘅 model，
Number 1 is the model of hate and
第
defiance.
二是恨及順服嘅 model，
Second is the hate and the obedience model.
第三是聽及抗拒嘅 model，
And third is the love and defiance model.
第last 是聽及順服嘅 model。
And the last one is love and obedience model.
有4款嘅 pattern，
4 patterns.
看咱咧選擇到一個。
And it's our choice which one
Number
we
one.
will choose. Number 1,
恨及抗拒嘅 model，
hate and defiance model.
最丈夫無聽家己嘅太太，
Husband doesn't love the wife.
最太太無順服家己嘅丈夫。
And then the wife doesn't submit to the husband.
這個 pattern 嘅結果差不多只有一條路當行，叫做 divorce。
And the result of this pattern would probably be just divorce.
所以你的確需要改變、改良這個關係。
So you need to change the relationship.
世界戰著呢款嘅問題，就是因為追丈夫無錢做丈夫，追太太無錢做
There
太
are
太。
many such kind of problems in this world because the wife aren't like a wife and the husband isn't like a husband.
我哋呢款嘅 model
Second model
就是恨及信道嘅態
is
model，
a hate and obedience model.
這個 model 有通繼續落去，
This model can be sustained.
因為第一有一個 partner，
But
伊願意繼續落去。
at the very least, there is one partner who is willing to continue to endure.
太太願意繼續落去，
The wife is willing to continue on with the relationship.
丈夫無成聽太太，
Husband doesn't love the wife a lot.
冇關心伊需要。
He's indifferent to her needs.
哎呀，但這個好太太繼續順服這個丈夫，
But yet the good wife continues to submit to the husband.
咱是在看到呢款嘅婚姻，
We've really seen such kind of marriages.
好太太
Good wife,
為咗丈夫歸你流目屎。
for the sake of, because of the husband, she would be shedding tears every day.
兄弟啊，
Man,
你聽我講一句話。
listen to my words.
上帝即刻紀念你嘅太太為你流出嘅目屎，
God will surely remember that the tears your wife has shed because of you.
唔通讓你嘅太太為你流出少幾罪目屎。
Do not allow your wife to be shedding too much tears because of you.
所以 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7, your prayer will be hindrance.
First
你
Peter
祈禱上帝會聽你。
1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7 tells us that your prayers will be hindered.
你是講你一生會順利咧啦。
In other words, that your life will not go smooth.
第三 pattern
The third pattern,
是聽及抗拒嘅 model，
it is the love and defiance model.
這個是相反。
This is the opposite.
丈夫愛聽太太，
The husband loves the wife,
但太太無愛順服丈夫。
but then the wife doesn't want to submit to the husband.
聽見這個叫做女權嘅運動嘅世界，
In our women's rights generation,
叫太太順服實在冇容易。
to get the wife to submit isn't easy at all.
特別你太太是真搞嘅人，
Especially if your wife is somebody who's really very talented or
哎呀，愛
smart.
順服這個戇丈夫真困難。
And to submit to the dumb husband is indeed very difficult.
但你記住，這是你嘅選擇，
But yet, remember, this is a choice that you made.
你要佢近超是你嘅選擇。
You got married to him, and this was a choice you made.
你可以較戇，你講夾你近超時，你較戇。
You married the stupid person, that is your choice, so you are even dumber than him.
嗱，近了就順服，
Once you get married to the person, then you've got to learn to submit.
嗱冇順服你嘅丈夫，
If you don't submit to your husband,
你嘅日子也是會好日子過嚟啦。
your days will not be smooth either.
你嘅婚姻會享受到上帝嘅祝福。
You wouldn't be enjoying God's blessing in your
Of course.
marriage.
The best，
And of course, the best one
聽及順服嘅 pattern，
is the love and obedience model.
最丈夫聽太太，
Husband loves the wife.
最太太順服丈
The
夫。
wife submits to the husband.
喺聖經裏面 ，Abraham and Sarah、
In the Bible, we see Abraham and Sarah.
Joseph and Mary，
We see Joseph and Mary.
按呢款嘅 pattern，
We see that they exhibit this kind of pattern.
冇容易，
It is not easy though.
但是唔是冇可能。
Yet it is not impossible.
我教你晒 principle。
Let me teach you three principles.
即係啥 principle 呢？
What are these
Principle
principles?
number one.
Principle number one.
你兩個需要常常追節你
Two of you have got to spend time together.
，husband and wife 的確常常追節你。
Husband and wife needs to be spending a lot of time
你
together.
分開，
And if you are separated,
唔係可能大家 love and submit 這款嘅 pattern。
if you are spending too much time apart from each other, it's very difficult for you to attain this pattern of love and obedience.
真濟人有，真濟嚟正有人講，即個 love love should spell in time time。
Many years ago, some people suggested that love must be spelled T-I-M-E or time.
實在真有意思咧。
Indeed, this is very meaningful.
聽這個人，
When you love a
之後
person
這個人有時間，
is to give time to that person.
所以冇可能冇時間，
So it is impossible for you to say that you've got no time for him
冇
or
時
her.
間都提時間。
Even if you really do not have the time, you will find the time to do so.
你 recall 頂拜。
Try recalling time past
husband 接你嘅時陣，
when your husband was still courting you.
常常有時間，
Well, he would very often find the time.
無大無節地出嚟，
For no reason, he would be in your home
個卡地未嚟，
and he would even call you up.
他最點正，
He's got so much time.
而唔是有點正，而挑工安排點正
It's。not that he's got a lot of time, but he actually is spending or really appropriating time for
因為
you.
love is time。
For love is time.
啊嗱，近超了，
After you get married,
佢講牧師，我實在冇時間啦
you say,
咯。
Pastor, I really do not have the time.
唔是冇時間
No, it's not that you don't have the time.
，time can spell in HEART heart。
Time can be spelled as HEART or
你
heart.
若有心就有時間，
If you have the heart, you will find the time.
你對這個人若有心，就好這個人有時間。
If you have the heart for that person, then you will find time for the person.
所以真奇妙哦
So very amazing, isn't it?
，love 是 time，time
Love is time.
is heart。
Time is heart.
所以你若聽這個人，
So when you love a
時
person,
間可以，
then you give the person time.
心可以，
You give the person your heart.
你記得，
Remember.
那個人若常常冇追一個，
And if two persons are always spending time apart from each other,
第好嘅朋友關係都慢慢刺疏落去。
even the best of friends the relationship will slowly grow cold.
Number two，
Number two,
唔係是 spend time together，
not only should you be spending time together,
就三個承擔家庭嘅大事，
you should share the housework,
唔係是厝內嘅大事，
not only pertaining to household
包括
chores,
管教家裡嘅大事。
but it includes disciplining the children.
中國人常常有一個 concept， 一個觀念，
The Chinese always have this kind of a concept.
男嘅負責外口，女嘅負責厝內。
The man looks after all the affairs outside of the home, whereas the woman looks after all the affairs of the home.
That's great，
That's great.
這個就分工合作。
That is like you're dividing up the share of the responsibility.
That's great，
That's great.
但是慢慢變咗另外一項大事。
Slowly, though, it's going to turn into something else.
男嘅只負責去外口賺錢，
Man will only be responsible of earning money outside the home.
到嚟厝內當唔插，
He comes home and he ignores everything else in the home.
其他什麼大事當唔知，
If he doesn't know anything about the children,
因為啲心內囊中是我係近超嘅責任，我係冇嘅責任。
because in his heart he thinks that everything else is the responsibility of my wife.
頂班嘅門隊冇也多，
And the problems before in the earlier days aren't that great.
因為真罪太太是全時間嘅老母。
But because many wives, they were actually full-time
你
mothers.
睇現在，
Look at today.
真罪太太唔嗱是過厝內，就去過生理。
Many wives not only have to look after the matters in the home, but they've got to look after their business or work as well.
有時我是假期外口作息，
And sometimes they go outside working on their own.
有時幫襯丈夫過生理。
Sometimes they help out with the husband's business.
你看咪啊？
Look at this.
咱當間做太太，
Wives among us.
你去外口作息，還是幫襯丈夫管生理？請你介紹。
If you're working outside the home or you're helping your husband in your family business, could you please raise your hand?
太太，
Wives, please raise your
唔
hand.
免排泄啊！你就會流
Don't
無
be
作息，
embarrassed.
真排泄，你作息就介紹啦。
If you're working, please raise your hand.
我跟你講，
Working wives.
現今這個世界啊，
Let me tell you,
差
in
不多
our world
兩
today,
種女嘅去鬥沙工，
practically every woman is helping out us in some ways.
所以都佢出嚟嘅時陣，
So when they come home,
兄弟你特行唔必做，
man, you don't want to do anything.
你感覺真公平
And do you think that's fair?
？No, it's unfair。
It is unfair.
所以你需要沙級鬥沙工，
That is why we need to help each other.
管教囡仔是誰嘅責任？
Whose responsibility is it to discipline the children?
是老爸還是老母？
Is it the father's responsibility or the
我哋
mother's?
講是老爸嘅責任，
Let me tell you, it is the father's
唔
responsibility.
但我這個老母去拍囡仔，
Don't relegate the spanking or the disciplining of the children
老
to
爸
the
你就
mother.
去拍囡仔，
Fathers, you've got to be the one to do the spanking.
但將
Spanking.
責任對這個老母，
And don't relegate the responsibility to the mother.
好啲囡仔感覺我這個老母真係個細嘅。
Because the children are going to feel that my mother is like a lion.
It's wrong。
That is wrong.
老母嘅 image 唔應該是細啊，
Image of the mother shouldn't be like that of a
應
lion.
該是隻 sheep。
It should be like that of a sheep.
老爸應該是細啊，
And the father ought to be the one whose image is like a lion.
因為老爸冇負責任，
Because the father is irresponsible.
所以老母變咗老爸。
That is why the mother has to become the
所以需要
father.
三個承擔出嚟責任啊。
And you need to be sharing the work of the home.
但是你係需要注意三件重要嘅事情。
But you must pay attention to three very important
但是
things.
活晒戰重要嘅問題，常常產生喺 marriage 婚姻嘅裏面。
Or perhaps we can say that there are three problems that very often happen in the
Number one.
family or in marriage. Number one,
sexual
it
temptation，
is sexual temptation.
即係對兄弟嚟講是 number one 嘅 temptation。
This is the greatest temptation for men.
無論你嘅太太有法，還是無通滿足你嘅需要，
Whether your wife is able to satisfy your needs or not.
當一個女嘅嚟引誘你嘅丈夫嘅時，伊都擋唔掉。
But then whenever a woman comes to entice or tempt your husband, he wouldn't be able to stand it.
今日你有通贏嘅一擺，
Today he may be able to resist or overcome once.
明日你伊無可能贏嘅第二擺。
But tomorrow he probably wouldn't be able to resist the
但
second
這個
time.
實嘅條你問伊 coffee tea or me，
When the secretary asked him, coffee, tea, or me?
你頭先擺講 coffee，
Of course he would say coffee.
第二擺講 tea，
Second time he would say tea.
第三擺講 you，
Third time he would say you.
這個叫 temptation。
This is temptation.
所以你需要幫助太太，你需要幫助你嘅丈夫。
So wives, you've got to help your husband.
我特特講 husband 這個 husband in Chinese 這個丈夫是 10 feet。
And I always say that husband in Chinese, which is 丈夫, meaning to say he's like 10 feet away.
所以太太啊，
So wives,
你常常需要照顧你嘅丈夫喺你嘅集尺嘅範圍裏面。
you've got to be always watching your husband and keep him within 10 feet of you.
你就看到伊嘅需要，
Then you would be able to see his needs.
你唔能讓你嘅丈夫規日拍拍走。
Do not let your husband go running around every day.
有時過嚟嘅 coffee tea or me 就話過咯。
And then somebody comes along and asks him coffee, tea, or me, then you will be in trouble.
地講牧師喎，
Reverend Tico,
是個真正好嘅牧師，
a very good pastor.
點解係靈區黨嘅牧師？
He was a pastor at Grace Gospel Church before.
以前聽住，
He loved the Lord so
但是因為
much.
共產嘅原因，
But because of communism,
伊對大陸嚟到東南亞，
he came to Southeast Asia from China.
及伊近照半佢30年。
And so he was separated from his wife for 30 years.
這個男嘅離過太太，隔嘅這個兩條話夠30年。
A man living apart from his wife for 30 years.
佢講伊面對戰罪無相關嘅 temptation。
And he said he faced a lot of different kinds of temptation.
伊特別講一擺，
And especially mentioned an incident.
有一擺伊去別嘅所在講到，
One time he went someplace else to preach.
這間教會可以徛喺這個 hotel 嘅裏面，
And the pastor had to accommodate him in a hotel.
伊去講到
And he went and preached.
暗暝到嚟，
And when he came back to
你
his room
佢
in the
佢房嘅
evening,
時陣，
at night, when he opened the door,
有一個女嘅無青紗倒喺伊嘅床嘅裏面，
there was a naked woman lying on his bed.
你見佢，
And
哇
he was taken aback. He was shocked.
！30年
30 years.
及到近超半佢，
He was separated from his wife for 30
現
years.
在去別嘅所在，
And now he's in someplace else.
見佢嘅時陣，
And he opened the door.
這個女嘅倒地下，
There's this woman lying on his bed.
佢驚到，
He was shocked.
伊隨衝落去下骹，
Immediately ran downstairs.
伊問這個空廳嘅人。
He asked the person at the reception,
今日我係保護這個女嘅無青紗，
why is there a naked woman in my room?
你知這人就演繹喎，
You know how the person responded?
大家都愛啦啦
Says, well, everybody likes that.
，enjoy yourself，enjoy
Enjoy yourself.
yourself，enjoy
Enjoy yourself.
yourself，這個就
Enjoy
temptation嚟
yourself. This is
個，
temptation.
冇得個人係廿幾啦，
Not everyone is able to resist.
所以太太啊，
So wives,
這是你嘅幫襯你嘅丈夫，
you've got to help your husband then.
丈夫啊，
Husbands,
你家己照顧你家己，
you've got to take care of yourself.
你若冇廿幾這個 temptation，
If you don't protect yourself and overcome the temptation,
就走啦啦。
if you cannot overcome the temptation, you've got to flee, you've got to run.
那我問這個女，今日你食什麼代志啊你？
Don't stop even for a moment and have a conversation with the girl,
你冇去啦啦，
because you're going to lose
這
out.
是男嘅頭一個戰鬥嘅 problems，
For this is the biggest problem for men.
戰罪婚姻失敗的這個所在，
And many marriages fail in this area.
咱就注意啦。
That is why we need to be very
Problem number
careful.
two
Second problem
是 finance 嘅問
is
題，
finances.
經濟上是婚姻第二個問題。
Finance is very often the second problem in a marriage.
1987美國裝一個 family 一個 survey 一個 report，
1987, there was a report, a survey from the U.S.
你講 56% 嘅婚姻產生問題是因為 finances 嘅問題。
56% of marriages that encounter problem, and the underlying reason is their finances.
婚姻當然是講聽，
Of course, in a marriage, we talk about love,
但係金錢可能是聽嘅 killer。
but money could be the killer of a marriage.
當家庭產生經濟危機嘅時陣，
When there is a financial crisis in the family,
互嘅問題嘅衝突係拿來拿去。
then you will see the problem between a husband and wife being magnified.
金錢一個戰爭大嘅對脈。
And money is a very broad topic.
但係我講，我哋就係兩個戰爭黨嘅 principle。
But today, let me tell you two very important principles.
Husband and wife 都常時注意。
Husband and wife, you need to take note of this.
Number one.
First,
你想學習良業為出嘅 principle，
you've got to learn to live within your means.
什麼意思呢？
What is the meaning of
你
this?
想了解你自個嘅節年裡面 exactly 你嘅 gross income 是攞最值。
And you've got to understand or be able to analyze and know how much is your gross income per month or per year.
即係講基本嘅需要剔走，
And then you take away or
The
deduct
basic-
all the basic needs or
將你
expenses.
提分剔走，
Tithing as well.
你集到巡邏紙你即係所在，
Then how much have you got left?
背順這條紙嚟計你嘅需要。
And you base on this amount to determine what sort of needs you are able to fulfill.
嗱，有巡紙，
If there is any savings,
你係買 iPhone、
if you want to buy an iPhone,
iPad，
iPad,
go ahead。
go ahead.
你係出國，
You want to travel
你有
overseas,
巡紙，
if you have enough
Go
money,
ahead.
then you can do that.
嗱冇巡紙，
But then if there is no
免出國。
balance, then you can do away with
免買
traveling
iPhone。
overseas or buying an
唔
iPhone.
免話電話。
You don't have to change your phone.
意思講我唔通好你欠人嘅錢，
In other words, that you shouldn't be getting into debt.
同個人講一句話，
The Chinese have a saying,
無欠人嘅錢，一生也欠。
being debt-free makes life lighter.
人若欠人嘅錢，
And if a person is in debt,
你嘅婚姻你嘅家庭未福氣啦，無幸福啦啦。
then you wouldn't be able to enjoy a blessed family or marriage.
所以記得一項代志，
So you must remember something,
一生都唔通欠錢。
that all your life you've got to strive to be debt-free.
用食得簡單，用得簡單無要緊。
You can eat more simply, you can spend or use things that are simpler.
特別現在咱有 credit card，
Especially these days that we have credit
千
cards.
萬唔通用 credit card 去著紙去買錢。
You should never ever use the credit card to borrow money or buy things in debt, to be in
credit
debt.
card 是全世界利息第一貴嘅，
Credit cards interest is the highest.
你一生都唔會出嚟。
You will never be able to get out of it for the rest of your
Number
life.
two.
Number two,
學習 saving。
you've got to learn to save up.
聖經中講，
What does the Bible say?
聰明人出嚟有積蓄寶貴嘅膏藥，戇人隨嚟隨吞落去。
Wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down.
你是聰明人還是戇人
Are you a wise person or a dumb person?
？The wise store up the choice food，
Wise store up choice food,
戇人嚟隨食落去，
but yet for the fools they gulp theirs down.
這叫做 saving。
This is what we mean by savings.
家庭的確需要有 saving，
In a family, there ought to be savings
因為咱唔知啊，有什麼 emergency 嘅代志發生。
because we may never know what emergency may come up.
你唔做你常常親戚嘅人拖嘛？
You cannot always be stretching out your hand and asking for help.
20個年整，
25 years ago,
但我啲香港嚟菲律賓嘅時陣，
when I came from Hong Kong to the
我已經
Philippines,
開始 saving。
I have already started the habit of savings.
所以我嘅現金真少，
Although my income was very little,
我將我嘅備息嘅契，我係提分吞走以後，
after I take out my basic expenses and my tithing,
我每一個嘅或者嘅某一個 percentage，即刻存啲銀行裡面。
I will always have a certain percentage of my monthly income that I save up in the bank.
到今日日，
And up until today,
所以你知我有攞錢噃，
so you know how much I have right now?
我是冇俾我啲仔，
I'm not going to tell you.
啲嘅貨啊，
You just
但是咱需
don't
要
need to know.
學 saving。
But savings is important.
我見啊細漢我就加以 saving 啦啦。
When my children were still small, I already taught them about savings.
我個幫陣以 saving，
And I also helped them
所以我
teach them how to
細
save.
見啊銀行都有 saving，
So all my 3 children have savings in the bank.
細漢就加起嚟啦啦。
Start teaching them even when they're young.
對你嘅婚姻，對你家庭一個真重要嘅保障。
And it's going to be a great assurance for your family and your
但係
marriage.
第三問題你需要注意，
And the third problem that you need to take note of
叫做 communication。
is communication.
miscommunication 是婚姻第三問題。
Miscommunication is the third biggest problem in a marriage.
今年哋即個 summer camp 我講咗一個 workshop 一個題目
In our summer camp this year, I spoke on a topic:
，stop, listen, speak。
stop, listen, and speak.
嗰隻 communication 係真正重要嘅 step。
I said that this is 3 very important steps in a communication.
人都是對未曉講話變咗曉講話。
People all originate from not being able to communicate to the point that they are able to communicate.
所以咱應該是來曉講話。
So that is why we need to be learning to be more effective in our
所
communication.
以老人應該比少年人更加曉講話。
So an elderly person ought to be able to communicate better, more effectively than a younger man.
不事實唔是咁呢，
But the reality isn't so.
因為 communication 需要 practice。
But because communication requires practice.
咱需要學習之後更加曉及人講話。
We need to learn how to be able to communicate more
一個
effectively.
good communication
A good
包
communication
括三個 portion。
comprises 3 portions.
content，
Content.
你講什麼嘅內容
What is the content of your communication?
？The tones of the voice，
And the tone of your voice.
你講話聲音，
The tone of your
就
voice.
是 body language，
And your body
你
language.
嘅動作，
Your body
你
language.
你少未夠。
Something that we didn't quite expect.
content 只不過是咱嘅 communication 裏面7% only。
Content only comprises 7% of your communication.
The tone of the voice
Tone of voice
是38%。
comprises 38%.
Body language is 55%。
And body language comprises
所以
55%.
這個 good 嘅 communication
So a good
唔
communication,
是 content 嘅問題，
it's not an issue, a matter of
是
the
你只有
content,
講話，
but rather how you
只
communicate
有
it,
表達。
how you express it.
嗱，你看咪？
Look at this.
這個字
One word.
英文是 what，
In English, it is what.
韓文是干啊？
Chinese,
啊，干啊，
gonna why?
干啊，why
Why?
why？
Why?
真簡單呢，
Very simple.
可能冇相關嘅意思喺裏面。
But perhaps there could be a wide variety of meanings in it.
你 imagine 啊 ，imagine，
Try imagining this.
有一擺你哋話講作事做嘢真真辛苦，
One time you just came home from a very exhausting day.
有成咯，
You're so tired.
到佢出嚟，
You come home,
傾佢嘅時陣，
you open the door,
哇靠啊，離家家，
and you see everything is in mess.
呢件啊啲同物件切單不單，
Your children's toys are strewn all over the
各定
floor.
嘅哇劈浪中嚟食，
And you've got on the table, you see the plates and the bowls and everything else.
你講哇，
Look at it.
我波是有變，最緊是冇最緊嘅，
Was my wife working today or not?
你也成咯，
And you are so tired.
所以你坐喺梳化裏面，
So you sat there on the sofa.
誒，我這個報紙，
And then there's this newspaper.
看報紙，
Look at the newspaper.
忽然間呢個波走嚟斜你，
Suddenly your wife comes along,
問你這個問題，
asks you a
好啦
question.，
你就答應，
How would you respond?
頭一個
First,
幫咗報紙幫落嚟，
you would bring down the newspaper.
什麼大字啊？
You ask her with a smile,
What?
What?
什麼大字啊？
What?
頭一，
First.
第二，
Second,
近朝問你這個問題，
wife asks you a question.
你看報紙嘅唔是？
You're reading the newspaper.
你報紙冇幫落嚟，
You continue reading.
什麼大字啊？
What is it?
這係第二個答案。
That could be the second kind of
第三
response.
可能性，
The third possibility
報
is
紙幫落嚟，
you put down the
啥大字
paper.
啦？
What is it?
請問，
Let
這
me
係
ask you.
what？
These three what?
是唔是晒 message？
Aren't these three different
好一個
messages?
message，
One message,
你太太聽了會歡喜嘅，
and that your wife will be pleased with.
首先咪頭一個
Of course, it would be the first one.
報紙幫落嚟，
You put down the newspaper,
看到伊
you look at her,
what？
and you ask her,
Oh.
what?
第二嘢
The second
what？
says, what?
這個是冇什麼感情。
Not much emotions or
第
feelings
三
in
個個
there.
係
And the third is even worse.
跟下啦，
What?
這個是起還嘅咯。
You're just starting a quarrel.
所以你講咩上這個內容，上這個
You
message，
see the same message,
有三個嚟表達。
but there are 3 ways of expressing it.
咱就學習做講話啦。
We need to learn how to communicate.
miscommunication 常常是婚姻這個戰鬥嘅問題。
Communication is very often a very big problem in a marriage.
But back to the basics。
And we have to go back to the
即
basics.
真正快樂婚姻啊
How do you have a happy marriage?
，but back to the basics。
Go back to the basics.
最丈夫聽你嘅太太，
Husband, you must love your wife.
最太太順服你嘅丈夫。
Wives, you must submit to your husband.
即係聖經嘅教導嘛。
For this is the teaching of the scripture.
所以聖經已經教咱，
So the Bible has already taught us.
咱冇建立婚姻，因為咱唔捌倒去聖經裡面。
We are not building up on our marriages because we are not going back to the Bible.
詩篇127篇第1節是我真愛嘅一句話。
Psalm 127 verse 1 is one of my favorite verse.
Unless the Lord builds the house, unless the Lord watches over the city，若唔是上帝看顧咱嘅所在，上帝建立咱嘅婚姻，建立咱嘅家庭，咱是在真沙央八骨。
Unless the Lord builds the house, unless the Lord builds our marriages, unless the Lord establishes our homes, then we are doing all of this in vain.
所以教會啊
So church,
，back to the basics，back
go back to the basics,
to the truth，back
back to the truth,
to the God，
back to God.
和上帝在做咱婚姻嘅中心。
Let God be at the center of our
無論
marriages.
最太太、最丈夫，關於行聖經嘅路。
When we as husband and as wives are willing to obey the teachings of the Bible,
叫做幫助咱。
may God help us.
我哋。